you? I'm so thrilled to have you on.
Oh, thank you, Sheena. I'm doing really, really well. I'm excited to be here, connecting with you, sharing with your ladies. I'm not going to lie. I know we're going to get a little vulnerable. So my heart is a little bit like, ooh, but
Yeah.
that's okay. It's all in the spirit for me of normalizing the emotions that we feel. Because I know for me, that just helps so much when I know, I'm not the only one and like this is normal. This is a normal part of having a human experience. So I'm happy to share and honored that you've asked me here.
Yes, well, I hope I can calmly guide you through this. I know that feeling. I can feel the energy from you through the camera of just like, what am I going to say? What are we going to talk about? I can feel that anticipation. And
Yeah.
I love that. I love that energy. So we'll hold on to that. So there's so many compliments I want to give you, but I feel like before I get into that, for those who sort of don't know who Tracy Harris is, could you give us a little bit of a bio of who you are and what you do?
Oh, I feel like we are all so many things every day to so many people. So
Mm.
that's still a really hard thing for me to answer. Well, first and foremost, I am me. I think I'm going to be 37. I'm old enough to not know how old I am anymore. You know, when you get to that point and you're like, oh, when was I born? And you start doing the maths, that's me. So I am married. I'm married. I married my high school sweetheart and similar sort of thing. I'm thinking we've been married for about 13 years, um, long enough to have to do the math. We have two little boys, and they are just like, we just have the most fun. We have the most fun being a family together. We love traveling. So prior to COVID, we were really big on traveling. Prior to becoming parents, my husband and I had traveled every year for 10 years. And we'd seen and explored so many countries together. And then once the boys came into our lives, we were traveling with them. And then, of course, COVID happened. And like everybody else, we were at home, just kind of exploring our own 5 kilometer radius and making memories at home together. But we've loved it. We love being at home. Our whole business is designed so that we can kind of be there for our boys and be there for each other. That's not to say that it's always rosy. It's certainly really challenging when you spend so much time together. But we wouldn't have it any other way. And what else can I say
Mm.
about me? I love myself a smoothie. I love smoothies every day. I love coffee. I love hanging out with my girlfriends. It's becoming a little bit easier now to hang out with friends. I breastfed both of my boys, and so I was feeding for the last 6.5 years.
Good
And
Lord.
recently, yeah, so only about 8 months ago at the time of this recording,
Mm.
did I kind of stop feeding my youngest. And so I'm only new to getting out there and really like socializing at night with girlfriends and things like that. And I love it so much. And finally at a place where I don't have that mom guilt. So yeah, I feel like I am very much just like probably a lot of your listeners.
Yeah.
I have a business. I have an online business as well. It's called Mums with Hustle. And at Mums with Hustle, I help women start, grow, and scale their own beautiful, heart centered businesses online, largely through Instagram marketing. So, yeah, that's what I do. And I absolutely love what I do because I want to see more women having economic power in their lives and in their relationships and having choice. And I don't believe we have to choose to fit in any particular box, be that a stay-at-home mom or a working mom. You can create your own box. That's what I say. And just be fully you and just live your definition of a joyful, successful life because that looks different to everybody. So I hope that's a nice explanation of me and what I do.
Awesome. Yes. Well, a couple of things I just noticed off the bat from that. I love that. It's hard to introduce yourself nowadays, right? Because a lot of people are sort of trying to sort of say, look, I'm not my job, right? You know how like you go to a party and you go, what do you do? You know, like that's like a first question, and it's really awkward because you sort of go, am I defined by my job or my title? So as you were saying at the start, sometimes doing your own bio can be difficult because you're sort of like, where do I start? You know, I have so many
Yeah.
roles of who I am. So, you know, I love that. Yeah, you led with who you are as a person, and then your job is just part of that too. So I love that. The other thing too is what I love about you, Tracy, and what sort of gravitated me towards you. So for those who are again new here, I have joined Tracy's membership, and I connected with Tracy. I think it was in the membership about 10 months ago now, 9 or 10 months. That's when I first sort of gravitated after listening to your podcast, Mums with Hustle podcast. And what I loved compared to all the other, you know, business coaches out there or life coaches or psychologists or, you know, whoever else out there, I love that you always talk about the balance of what life do you want first and then create a business around that rather than creating your life around business, because I think that's where so many of us, like from childhood, you know, it's all about the career and the job and choosing that first and then going, oh,
Yeah.
but fit your life around that later, you know. So I love that you encourage so many women in particular to really get clear about what's the kind of life that you want to live that's balanced to you, then create a business that fits that. So that's something I don't see everywhere, and I think that's really refreshing.
Oh, thank you for affirming that, because that's 100% how we try to live ourselves. And it hasn't always been like that. Like 100%, I was on the path of do really well at school, get into university, do the thing that allows you to use as many of your, at the time it was UAI points. Um, so you should be doing something that like, you know, something that really showcases how smart you are. And happiness kind of came after that. And I had this one, and I still do have this one really beautiful friend. She's incredibly intelligent. I can't even remember what her score was at the end of year 12 after those studies, but she could kind of pick from anything that to go and study at university. But her heart wanted to pursue like being a pastry chef. And I just will never forget being 18 and her saying, but I could never choose that because that would be considered a waste of all of these grades that I got. And so it was kind of normal to stuff down your passion, your joy, and rather start embarking on a path that aligned with other people's expectations or their version of what success is. And, like that's, and to a similar degree, like I was doing that too. I didn't get anywhere near as high of a score as what she did. But to me, my definition of success was kind of wrapped up in a degree or a title or, a promotion and how quickly you could climb that ladder and jump through those hoops, even if it wasn't what really lit you up inside. And so, that changed drastically for me when my first baby came along, and we can talk about that a bit more later if you like. But I've really seen more people in 2020 switch. That light bulb kind of went off for people as well. Like with COVID and lockdowns and restrictions, people really taking stock of the life that they've created and the path that they've chosen to go on. And for some people feeling really energized and excited about it. But for a lot of people also kind of going like, what the hell am I doing? And how did I get here? And realizing that they actually have a choice. So Yeah, I love helping women create their life first, their business second, and having your business be the vehicle for having a positive impact on the lives that you touch, whether that is through an e-commerce business that sells a physical product, or through a creative business, or through sharing your knowledge and expertise. It doesn't matter. But having a business that helps you have impact, but also leaves you feeling deeply fulfilled, because you can, and I think should, enjoy what you do and get paid to do something that is fun for you. So
Yeah.
that's what I'd like to see more of for people.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And I think that's a societal shift too. I definitely grew up around similar time to you. I'm a tiny bit younger than you. But yeah, growing up around that time, yeah, we came from parents who they were still in that survival mechanism of, what's going to be a security based job, what's going to give us like financial security and things like that. And rather than follow your passion, because 100 years ago, if you followed your passion, you might not have the security needed, right? So we
Absolutely. It's a
different.
privilege now. It's a privilege. Like, the world has changed. It is a privilege to be able to say, I can follow my passion and be able to even put food on my table. And there are many, many countries around the world still where it is just a case of survival. Like, let's not pretend that this is a privilege that is even allowed to the majority of the world, because it's not. And so I just think, like, if we do have that privilege, and especially if we do have the means, like the technology at our disposal and the skills, then we really, like, that is a blessing and that is a gift, and we really owe it to ourselves, but also the world, to use that and to use it for good.
Yeah, and I think regardless of where you are in the world, or what privileges you do or do not have, I think something that you yourself and myself are both, I know that we're both real aligned with, is living a values-based life. Regardless of what you have, that's all you can hold on to. And in Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, that's quite a popular book, and that basically, for those who haven't read it, he was a Holocaust survivor and went through some really atrocious things. But he was basically like, as long as you live a life that's aligned with you and you make meaning, then whatever happens to you, whatever you do or don't have, doesn't matter, because you can say, I acted in a way that aligns with who I am. So that's so
Yeah.
important. So we got deep really fast there, Tracy, which is just no surprises there. But I want to get into the second R of our 4R formula, which is sort of the basis of our 4Q podcast. So we've got reflect, redefine, redesign, and realign. So we're up to the redefine. We know who you are now and kind of a gist of what you're about. So redefine is really about what's been like a pivotal moment in your life that's redefined like a new perspective or meaning, and the way you see life. So for a lot of people, this might be a hard moment that changed things for you. So if you're comfortable, I'd love to sort of hear what your kind of redefine moment might be.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was becoming a mum. And I think a lot of us relate to that. All of a sudden, we see the world in a different way. We can even become more risk averse because we're trying so hard to protect this beautiful life that we've just created. But returning, and we're really, it's at this time where even if you've never really thought about your values, they kind of pop up for you and you kind of realize, oh, no, I don't hold that as a priority anymore. Or no, I'm not going to continue on that path. And you start to figure out what feels good and what doesn't feel good. Or like you said, what's in alignment, what's not in alignment with who you are and what you value. And it can be pretty confronting, especially if you haven't really been clear on what those values are up until that point. So for me, I didn't know how motherhood was going to change me on a psychological level. I
No one
didn't know
ever
that.
does. We never do.
No one talks about it. And that's why I think you're such a gift, Sheena. You're such a gift. Like sharing this content. Like you don't have to be sitting here creating these podcast episodes for your community, but you are. And so, I just want to thank you for doing that. I know the time it takes. I know the vulnerability it takes to jump on and share your voice and your thoughts and your expertise. So thank you. But yeah, returning to work was really challenging because I was instantly faced with, well, these are the values at this place. And this is how we see mothers and working mothers. And it was very fixed and it was very clear. And it didn't align with my idea of being a mum, being a working mum. Those two things didn't match. And so I hit the fork in the road. It was very apparent. And I was actually asked to choose, do it like this or hand in your resignation. Like there's no space here for you. And so I chose to I think the advice was go and take like a mental health break. Don't make a decision while you're under this stress and this pressure and all of that. So that's what I did. But in the end, I ended up choosing to step back once I did have a really clear head of the whole situation, because to give up a career that you loved, that you studied, I don't know, 6 years for, positions and promotions that you worked so hard for, it's very, and that guaranteed income, that certainty, that safety that comes with being an employee when you are a parent with a mortgage, like that's really frightening. So I needed to not make a decision whilst I had anxiety and was going through that, but once I was better. So I did that, and I'm so grateful to the person that gave me that advice. So grateful. So yeah, for me, it was okay. It was that moment of this isn't feeling in alignment for me. And I could see where the path was headed for my life, for me as a mom, for our whole family unit, knowing I wanted to have another baby in a couple of years and just not feeling like that was a healthy place for me.
Yeah.
So I did decide to step back. But yeah, that was my redefining moment. And from there, I still knew, Sheena, I still had the same brains. I still wanted to work. I just had to change the context. So change the place. So I decided that business was calling me. Like I was supposed to do my own thing.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to build this village of other women that have possibly been through similar things. Women that often feel a little bit different or crazy, being a mum and like, what? Wanting to start a business now as if I don't have enough on my plate. But that voice, that entrepreneurial spirit won't quite go away. And so just holding that space for people to know that it's okay and you can build a business on your own terms, at your own pace, in your own way. And, it can be that vehicle for your definition of that dream life. So yeah, that was my redefining moment, and it hurt.
Yeah.
It stung.
I'm so curious, Tracy, because that is a really hard decision. I think a lot of us are still in it. I do my side thing, and I don't call it my side thing; it's my main thing. But
Good.
I do work for somebody else. That's just my reality too. Hopefully, one day it may be different, but I think about that risk, Tracy, of how like I'm sort of picturing as you describing it, picturing yourself, because I think a lot of us have been there, that point as a mum when you have to go back to work. I still think back to my own moment, like it's this gut-wrenching feeling of like, I still have a mortgage to pay. We live in a society where unless you have a really good income, it is really tricky to live off one income. Most working families, it's two incomes. And so I can just literally picture myself in your position going, okay, security, good things, but it's out of alignment, and then choosing to walk away. I'm curious, like, what tools or like what characteristics do you have inside of you to maybe have given you that strength to go, I'm actually going to choose something else, and if it helps with you answering this question, I know a theme that sort of happened with other guests on my podcast is who've been in similar situations, that fork in the road situation. Some of them have, in that time off, had like a spiritual sign, or like just this gut feeling, or just, the universe directly going, this is what you meant to do. I'm putting it in front of you. What do you think it was for you? Like, because it would be, there are many people who wouldn't do that, who would have just gone, you know what? I know this sucks right now, but it's, the security for my family or whatever, or I'll just sacrifice my own mental health for the good of my family, which we all know ends in disaster. What do you think it was that led you to go, actually, I'm going to walk away and I'm going to start something that I don't even know how it's going to manifest, but it's going to?
Yeah, such a good question. Oh, because I feel like I did try to stuff it down for, at least the whole of my pregnancy. I could kind of see all of this happening the whole second I said I was pregnant. And then little moments while I was on maternity leave. I was on maternity leave for about 13 months. So it was around 2 years that I was already feeling like I was on the outs. And I would just stuff it down and be like, well, it's normal to not enjoy going to work sometimes. It's normal to dread Mondays. We live in a society that dreads Mondays and lives for Fridays. That's normal. You're not supposed, it's not supposed to be easy and fun going to work. Suck it up. Like, what do you think this is supposed to be? And I was just like, no. Like, I got to that point and that fork in the road, and ultimately I was given the ultimatum too. So that always helps you face your biggest questions. And I'm just very aware that everybody has different belief systems and things like that. But for me, I am a Christian. I am Catholic. And so for me, I knew in that moment it was bigger than me. Like, everything was a God moment. Everything had the Holy Spirit in it. Everything was happening for a reason. And I could feel that presence, and I could feel that I was not alone in that, even though it felt so painful and so hard. So I just trusted that presence, that God presence. And because I do believe that we're supposed to live a wonderful, beautiful life and live it to the full. Like, as a Christian, that's what we believe. So I was like, okay. And I just kind of followed that divine feeling, call it blind faith, even though in that moment, I was suffering with extreme anxiety and depression also. I couldn't have that faith in myself, but I could have that faith in that higher being, I guess, or that essence. So for me, it was definitely that. It was a faith thing that pulled me through, because I couldn't see through the fog. I couldn't see a different alternate scenario. I couldn't see things playing out positively. I was just like a deer in the headlights. Like, I just needed a nice voice to follow. And so that's what I did. And yeah, I'm just forever thankful that, I have that element, that faith element. I'm really, really grateful for that.
Yeah. Well, I know as a working mum myself, like, hats off to you, because that would have been such a gut-wrenching decision, because before we have children, our careers are our babies, right? Like, we work so hard, you go all the years at uni, or, all the hours spent, crafting your trade, or whatever it might be that your career is prior to children. And then after children, it's this burst of, it's forced upon you what is important. And I've only been in business for a year, and my son is only just turned 3 at the time of this recording as well. And those two things are the biggest personal development lessons I have ever
Oh,
had.
yeah.
Parenting and starting a business. So,
Mm.
you know, I don't think anything else pushes you to really ask yourself what is important, and then how can I make what's important at the forefront of my life. So yeah, hats off to you. So that kind of leads us to our third area, which is the redesign. You know, after this moment, like having to choose between, you know, the career you've been working for and motherhood and what life felt like what felt right. You know, I'm curious, what tools did you use to sort of redesign your life for the better? You know, how did you go from that to where you are now?
Yeah, well, I had my whole identity wrapped up in what I had studied and the role that I had. And I didn't really realize how much light and emphasis and how much of my identity was really attached to those external things rather than who I am like as a person and at a soul level. So that's why when you even asked me to introduce myself at the beginning, it's really easy to default and say what you do and, you know, all of your accomplishments and blah, blah, blah. Like I could have said, I'm an ex-teacher turned 7-figure online entrepreneur and I help women, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a person first. So like trying not to get attached. But I realized in my career, like I was really attached to that. So unraveling that and redefining that was a process. And it took a lot of undoing. And so for me, first, it was like my prayer life. That was always there. That's always been a constant thing through my life. In addition to that, it was also professional support. So I saw my GP and he put me on a mental health plan, and I found a psychologist locally and I started seeing her. But I needed more tools. So in addition to that, I don't even know how it happened, but I came across Brene Brown's work. So this was about 7 or 8 years ago now. Yeah, 7 years ago, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't even know what book she had just released at that point. But I started listening because I was pushing the pram daily, trying to settle this baby that didn't like to sleep without motion. I had to always be pushing the pram. And so I would listen to her audiobook, and it was just, oh, so helpful. So helpful. That I think I would just encourage everyone to just try all the things.
Yeah.
Try all the things, because sometimes they complement each other and sometimes you realize, oh, I'm not an audiobook or podcast person. I just need this.
Yeah.
But I needed lots of things. And so, yeah, it was definitely that. And then I'm so blessed that not long after I had finished Brene's book, I then got to see her live in Sydney. And it was just amazing. And I think I paid $50 for my ticket because she wasn't quite known here yet. And then I think it was, I don't know, a couple of years ago now, some people told me that she was coming to Sydney, and I saw the ticket price and I was like, oh, okay, wow. Okay. And it was in a much bigger place.
Yeah.
A lot more people could be seated. Yeah. So that's just amazing that her message is getting out there far and wide like that. But yeah, they were my top 3 things. So my faith and prayer life, professional help.
Yeah.
I chose to not be medicated for my mental illness. And then, yeah, the audiobooks and largely Brene's work. I did try to meditate, but I used to cry at the end of my meditations because I was like, I can't meditate. Oh, they say that you're supposed to be thinking about nothing. And I downloaded, I can't remember what app, some sort of mindfulness app.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, oh, it's really good. His voice is really good. And then that made me get more anxiety because I couldn't do the meditation. And then I thought, oh my gosh, I'm broken. Oh, it was
Oh,
so hard. It was so hard, Sheena. And
well,
exercise as well. I tried so hard, but I had mum guilt, so I couldn't go to the gym. I just couldn't get there. Like
the,
I just had mum guilt for everything.
the
So, you
struggles.
know,
Yeah.
it
Well,
was real. It was real.
well, first of all, a couple of things. I'm so glad you found Brené Brown. I'm impartial to her because she's a social worker as well, and I'm a social worker. So I'm like, yay, social workers of the world. But but also, I think what you're saying is so relatable because in therapy and coaching and all the courses and everything that I do in Savasana Collective, that's all I do. If you really broke it down, I just go, here's a bunch of tools that work for other people. Try all of them, see which one fits for you, see which one doesn't. Some will work for you at certain times, some will work at other times, but that's literally, it's like an experimentation. What works for me and what sits okay. And,
Yeah.
um, I think the people who follow me, I just want to be clear, like I've had to have this conversation several times on social media, so I just want to be clear about it that I never will ever what we call pill shame someone for taking medication. If that's what you want to do, if that's the line that you've taken, totally okay. But in my
Yes.
practice, I'm a very much an advocate for, and Brené talks about this as well, is that there are a lot of societal reasons why we're all feeling anxious and depressed, in other cultures that have less than us. Motherhood, that entering into it doesn't lead to so many of these anxiety, depression, etc., because they have that group network. You've got aunties, uncles, cousins. If you need to tap out for a moment, you've got 15 people around you who you can tap out to. Or if you need to vent and go, oh my gosh, I'm having a day. There's 15 people who you can choose from. Whereas, in our Western cultures, we're very by ourselves, in the house by ourselves all day, in the nursery by ourselves, getting up 20 times in the night by ourselves, or maybe with our partner. So it's no wonder we're all feeling that because we're not connected to how we are as pack animals, as tribal animals, right? So if you look at it from a biological sense, it's no wonder that we're feeling that because we're not living as a human being anymore. We're in this
Yeah.
weird space. So, I'm glad that you found that spirituality and those things that got you through that time. So it's amazing to hear that journey. And thank you for sharing that because I know that that's not an easy thing to do, but it's totally relatable. I think we can all, relate to that too. It's just such a whirlwind, right? Motherhood, parenting, business, doing it all together. So,
I just
um,
want everybody to know, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. It's not that you're not good enough or you should have your stuff together. It's okay. It's okay. I think we all experience the highs and the lows. And as long as we have like an open dialogue about these things, then there can just be so much less shame and stigma about it. Um, I do love meditation now, though.
ooh,
Hello. I love
interesting.
it. Yeah, I love it so much. I had to find my own version. Again, there are so many different styles of meditation, like
Oh,
so
yes.
many. And
Mindfulness,
like not
meditation,
mindfulness,
visualization, like so
yes,
many.
guided, non-guided. Like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness. So I just want to go back in time and give my little self a hug that was trying so desperately to meditate. But again, I was so in my head, which is what anxiety is, so in my head that I was like, am I doing it right? Like, I'm also an overachiever and a perfectionist. So I was like, I have to get a high distinction at the meditation. Like,
Yeah.
as if someone was in my head marking my ability to meditate. Like, I was like, I'm not having any of the experiences that other people have. I'm not calm. My thoughts are still running. I don't have white space. Like, oh, I just can't do it. But I have persisted, and just found a style or styles of meditation that work for me. So I didn't want to just move on, Sheena, by not addressing that, because I don't want people to hear this conversation and then think, oh, she thinks meditation doesn't work, so I'm not going to use
No,
it. And no.
no.
Keep at it. Find the style that works for you.
Well, exactly right. And it's a practice. So it takes practice.
Yes.
And unfortunately, us perfectionistic types, us high achievers, we tend to go, I'm going to be really good at things from the beginning. And if I'm not, I'm
Yeah.
doing it wrong, or, there's something wrong with me. So it is that learning, like, this is a practice. And the thing about meditation is it's not thinking about things, it's realizing what comes up for us. So is sometimes if I get someone who's never meditated before, or maybe isn't in a great space, and I go, we're just going to sit with our emotion for 5 minutes. The amount of times that tears come up, because it's like, that's what meditation's about. It's like bringing to the surface what you've been pushing down. So if you're a person that as soon as you close your eyes, you're like, think, wrong, 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 wrong. That in itself is a lesson that's what you do,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
yeah, again, so useful for so many things. And I think when people can go to a place where they meditate, it shows that you've progressed, because sometimes, I don't want to say that meditation is for everyone, because sometimes when we have unresolved trauma, i.e., unresolved issues from the past, meditation can feel like an unsafe place because our nervous system's dysregulated. So it's just being aware that sometimes meditation isn't right for us right now. Doesn't mean it always
Yeah.
won't be, but as we heal ourselves and as we grow ourselves, there'll be a time and place for it. And sometimes it's just the messenger of, you're not okay right now, and that's okay.
Yes,
So
that's the message.
so
Oh my
I
goodness.
guess finally, and I guess that kind of leads into, I'm guessing this is part of your realignment. So the final R of our 4 Rs is around realign. So, after going through this journey and being who you are now, what do you do to stay on track, to stay calm and clear and content? It sounds like meditation might be what keeps you on track, one of the things. But yeah, after going through this journey and going through the highs and lows, how do you stay in a more grounded and content space now?
Yeah. Oh, such a good question. So again, the prayer life is still there. Um, but I have yes to the meditation as well, like a meditation practice. And for me, being that overachiever and perfectionist, I wanted to say, well, I had these expectations of myself that to be good at meditation, you have to do it for this long, this many times a week, and it should be part of a morning routine that you do consistently. And no, I've thrown all that out the window. I just meditate when I feel like I need to meditate, and that's okay. Um, what else do I do? I really am mindful of the conversations that I have with people and the energy that I'm around too. So if I want to be a certain type of mother, then I surround myself with other women that are, on that journey as well. Or I could kind of look up to almost like a mother myself. And this was a classic example of that was for me to say, it was a family decision that I would feed my babies until they chose to self-wean. I know not everybody shares that same value. That's okay too. I don't think there's right, there's wrong, there's just different, and being okay with what's different. So that was a choice that we made. So for me to be able to do that, I had to kind of surround myself with experts like midwives, other women that had fed into the toddler years that I could kind of go to either for advice as different things came up or emotions would come up for me, and have that social support. But it's not just around nursing and breastfeeding, it's also around business. So when I think about myself as an entrepreneur and a woman in business, like, what village do I need to have around me that helps support me in a safe space? Because there are more people out there that don't have their own businesses that are telling you it's risky, stick to, take this direction in life. And so if I've decided that business is a thing that I'm really serious about, then I make sure that I'm part of several business communities, and I've always got a mentor, and I've got peers that are really keeping me on track with that as well. So that's kind of like, the mum side, the business side. And then just me personally, I mentioned the faith and prayer life, meditation, but also self-care. So I didn't realize that even prior to becoming a mother, I had rules for myself with my own self-care.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, so I was a teacher. I don't think I even said that in this episode. I've talked about having a career, but I didn't talk about that I was a primary teacher. And so I developed this mindset as a teacher that I could only go and get a massage in the school holidays. Like I'd have to make it through the term and then reward myself. And other things too, like getting my hair done or getting my nails done or whatever the act of self-care was. And when I think about myself prior to being a mum, it was usually those sorts of acts of self-care. Now that I'm a mum, self-care is having a shower and not rushing through it. Like, yes, I'm going to shave my legs in this shower. Yes, I'm going to do the cleanse and the scrub. Actually, I'm going to put a hair mask on and not feel bad about how long I'm taking. So my self-care acts have kind of changed a bit. But I noticed that I did have this habit around self-care being a reward and not a requirement.
Yeah.
And so I carried that through into motherhood. And I would say more so over the past 12 months, that has really started to shed. And I'm having guilt-free experiences of self-care. Little ones, little moments to longer ones, hanging out with friends and feeling good about it, or going for a walk by myself and feeling good about it. So yeah, self-care is a huge thing that is helping to keep me grounded. I just wanted to touch on that because I know something I hear from the ladies in my community. We can feel so bad about doing things for ourselves. So I don't know, maybe are you thinking about self-care as a reward or a requirement? And I've definitely switched. Like it's just a requirement.
Oh, fantastic. And that's exactly, the mindset we want to take. Like, I think, realistically, mothers and women just in traditional roles have always been self-sacrificing. We sacrifice our careers for our children, or we sacrifice our wants and needs for everybody else's. Traditionally, that's kind of what women did. It's kind of an more of a modern day thing to actually get a career, do what you want, and those sorts of things. But you're so right, is that it's self-care is a requirement. And what I often tell people is it's like servicing a car. Like you need to service your car, otherwise it's going to break down, or the engine's going to give out. And it's a lot harder. Like if you reach that burnout point, it's going to take a few months to recover. So you're going to have to rebuild that engine to get that car driving again, as opposed to just servicing it on the reg, taking care of it, so, and that's what we all need to do. Those little moments, like you say, like it doesn't have to be a night out with the girls. It could be like, I'm going to have a shower and treat myself and not rush, or those little moments like a mindful coffee in the morning. Like you've got the kids, I'm just going to have 5 minutes just to have this coffee without my phone, without distraction, just the bliss, right?
Yes, that feels like abundance. Like that makes me feel like an absolute queen. Like, isn't it amazing? It's in those little things.
Oh, but it takes the work, Tracy. I think you can obviously show that you've done the personal growth work to find those moments, because we're not trained to do this. This isn't something that comes naturally to a lot of us. Like it takes work to feel those pleasurable gratitude moments throughout the day without guilt. But also that gratitude for these mini moments is what at the end of your life you'll go, wow, I've lived such an amazing life, because you were present in it. right?
Yeah.
Didn't just rush you by. So, oh my gosh, Tracy, so many good gems in this episode. I cannot wait. I'm sure so many people who will listen to this are going to get so much out of it. So tell us all, where can people find you if they want to connect, if they want to jump on board this Mums with Hustle train? Where can they find you?
Well, if you identify as being even just a little bit curious about having a business or entrepreneurship, you might like to come over and follow me on Instagram. My handle is Mums with Hustle. And also, I have a podcast, which you have been on, Sheena. So if you love this lady, come and check her out over on my podcast. My website is mumswithhustle.com. You can listen to the podcast through there. They come out every Monday and have done for almost 6 years. So there's a lot there. It's full of me sharing my business journey, but also having other women like Sheena coming on and sharing how they are building their businesses, how they're juggling motherhood at the same time. Sometimes there's a bit of Instagram strategy on there, of course, because that's what I teach women to do through my membership, the Social Method Society. So if you are wanting to learn how to really market yourself and have that brand presence for your business, whether you're just starting or maybe you've got an existing business but not an Instagram presence as yet, then maybe check out the Social Method Society too. But that's all on my website. Go and check it out. It's been so nice. Thank you for being such a lovely, supportive, gracious podcast host.
Oh, Tracy, you're too kind. I'm loving these compliments. My head's going to get big real soon. So
Oh, it's all true. Just receive them.
oh, thank you so much. And yeah, I cannot wait to share this with you. All Tracy's details will be in the description. So jump on Tracy's train. I know I have, and it's changing me for the better. So, oh, thanks again, Tracy, and we'll talk to you next time.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. Bye.